Hi, I keep trying to make a video on Telegram and it's just not working. So I'm going to do it this way and then just put it on there. All right, this has to do with evidence, search warrants, arrest warrants, conviction, and plea deals. All right, we're going to start with the old person filing the complaint first. Let's say that your bicycle's stolen and you would like to get it back. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the police department and you are going to file a complaint. And you're going to say, my bike was stolen. The police officer is going to take all the information, everything that you can give him, and he's going to start paperwork on this. Then what that officer is going to do is he's going to try to get evidence and find your bike. But let's say that your crime is more serious and you file a complaint. Well, then that may determine that there has to be a detective within that department to find the evidence. Okay? So what happens is that they're going to have to say, all right, let me look and see if there's any text messages. And if you do not have them saved on your phone, that can be sent to the police department. Then what they'll do is they'll get a warrant or like a search warrant to like the phone company like Verizon or AT&T, and they say, I need the phone conversations and text messages from this phone number to this phone number on these certain days. Then they have to give that transcript to the police because there's a court order to do it. Now, that then becomes evidence. Let's say you've taken some pictures. Well, guess what? That becomes evidence. Let's say that you claim somebody was at your house at a certain time and they got a parking ticket. Well, guess what? That parking ticket can be evidence. I'm just giving you different things that can be found as evidence. People that witness something can use that testimony as evidence, as a witness. All right? So when the police, meaning the detectives, get enough evidence and they're like, wow, I think that we've got enough and it needs to go to trial, what they're going to do is now they're going to talk to the prosecutor. And the prosecutor is going to look at all of the evidence that was collected. And they're going to say, yes, we can go forward and build a case on this and take this person to court. Or they will say, no, there is not enough evidence. This will not see the light of day in a courtroom. I cannot try this case. If you bring me more evidence and there's enough, then we will go to court. So this is why sometimes people can have a complaint put against them and it never sees a courtroom. You never get any paperwork from a court. That's because there probably wasn't enough evidence. But if you're arrested, this means that there was enough evidence. So this means the prosecutor said, yes, there's enough evidence. We need to arrest this person immediately so we can get a court date set. So what they'll do is they'll get a judge to sign off on an arrest warrant. But you have to tell the judge what you have and then tell the judge this is enough. I can build a case on this. That judge will then sign off on what is called an arrest warrant. This is when the police come and they handcuff you. They put you in a police vehicle. They drive you to a police department. You are fingerprinted. Your picture is taken. And then you get your one phone call. Some people will call their attorney. Some people will call their parents. Some people call a bailsman to get out. And what bail means is that you are going to pay so much money to get out. The bailman is going to cover the court fee. And you promise to show up on this date. If you don't show up, then they can take your house or take whatever, but they're going to send a bounty hunter out to get you. A majority of people don't do that. There are many that do, but the majority show up to court. All right? All of this wouldn't have happened unless there was evidence. Does everybody follow me? What I'm saying, what evidence is. Now, evidence does not say you're guilty. Evidence does not say you're innocent. Evidence just shows that there's enough there. that it can be tried in a court of law. This is what your case is built on. The evidence and witnesses and testimonies. That is what a case is. Now, because you've been arrested, because there was enough evidence, and because there's a possibility you will go to jail, a majority of people get an attorney to represent them. This means this attorney has to look over the evidence that the prosecutor has and what the police gathered for the prosecutor. And they say, well, I can knock that one out. I can probably get rid of that, but that one's going to stick. That one's got to stay. Boy, that one's damning. Then your attorney's going to talk to you, and they're going to say, this is what I've seen. And with all the evidence that has been gathered, I do not believe that I will be able to get you off. There's a possibility I can lose this case. And if this happens, you're facing 7 or 8 years behind bars. Now, what we can try, if you would rather do this, is take a plea deal. And with this plea deal, we'll talk them down to this instead of it carrying this. This will give you less time. This will be like a misdemeanor instead of being a felony. I think the prosecutor will go for this because I know they've got a really big case coming up and they're not going to want to be tied up with this. So let's say we take this and plead it down to a misdemeanor. You can probably get 30 days of probation, and you'll probably have to pay a fine and maybe do some community service. But if we don't get this plea deal approved and you don't do this, you're probably facing this. And it's up to you what you want to do. If you want to try it in front of the judge and a jury, I will do it. And I will do it to the best of my ability. But I highly recommend that we just try to bypass that. All right? Then you get to make up your mind. Do you want to go in front of a judge, or do you want to take a plea deal? Now, a majority of innocent people will say, I never did that. I don't care what that picture says. I wasn't there at that time. I don't care what that text message said. I was cooking at Bob's house. I didn't have my phone with me. That wasn't me. Whatever it is you want to say, okay? But an innocent person is going to fight to keep their name clean. Because once you're convicted of a crime, then for the rest of your life, you will be known as that type of criminal. And some crimes leave an ugly name behind it, okay? So, do innocent people take plea deals? Possibly. Do I think a majority of time? And the answer is no. I think most people want to go to court to prove themselves innocent. And that's what I would do, okay? So a plea deal does not mean that you've been convicted. Conviction means that your evidence was presented by the prosecutor. Then your attorney tried to say that evidence wasn't true. And both parties get to talk in front of a judge and a jury. The jury takes all of the statements from the prosecutor and the attorney, looks over the evidence, and makes up their mind if you are guilty or innocent of the crime that's been presented in the courtroom. When you plea deal, that evidence never gets to go into a courtroom. All right, so the evidence doesn't go away. It doesn't get thrown away. It doesn't magically disappear. The evidence is still there, okay? But what it means is that the judge didn't get to hear that evidence. The jury didn't get to hear it. And nobody got to stand up and debate whether or not you were guilty or innocent. Because you just said, yeah, I'm guilty of taking that bike, but I didn't steal it. I borrowed it without their permission. See what I'm saying? So you've said yes that you did do something. Because you had to take the plea deal. You had to say yes, you did something. You don't get to say you didn't do anything, I'm just taking a plea deal. You had to admit that you committed a crime. Whether or not it's a lesser crime or not, you said yes, you committed a crime. Now, the bad thing about plea deals is, like I said, the evidence wasn't presented. No one got to hear it. The person that filed the complaint on you did not get to tell their side of the story. Because you took away all that when you take a plea deal. All right. So now we understand what evidence is. We understand how you get a search warrant or you get an arrest warrant. We understand what a conviction means. And now we understand what a plea deal actually means. So when someone is talking about Phil and they say he went to court, he's a convicted pedophile, the answer to that is no, Phil was never convicted of that crime because he took a plea deal. But that does not mean that Phil is innocent. Okay? So this is where he's getting all of you. It's because you're using the wrong words because you don't understand what those words mean. This video is to help you. All right? It is no-brainer that I do not like Phil. I find him arrogant. I find him a liar. And Phil, if you're listening to this, it's the truth. Okay? So what I am going to do, because you think you're smarter than everyone, you think you've got it all figured out, but people like me are going to take the time to educate these other people so they can present their side of the story, present it a lawful way that you can say nothing about. Because everything that I'm teaching them, you know damn good and well, there's nothing you can do about it. Period. You got that, Phil. This is karma kicking you in the ass. All right. So, what you tell people when you talk about his past, you say, well, Phil has a questionable past. He was arrested for this. And even though he did not get convicted for the crime because he took a plea deal, the evidence was still overwhelming for them to file a warrant to arrest him and for him to have to face a judge and take a plea deal. So we cannot call him a convicted person of this nature, but we can say that the evidence was probably strong enough that he would have been convicted of the crime if it had been tried in a court of law with his peers. That's what we can say. Now, if you have any copies of the evidence, that's fine, because you can say this was the evidence that was collected when they were building their case. If you have court documents that show that he was in court, you can say these are the court documents to show you that he was in court that day and that he did plead guilty to this, but not what he was originally going to be tried for. So because he did not have his case heard by his peers, he took a plea deal for this, which gave him this and this. And because of that, he does not have pedophile in his record. That's how you can state it. There's nothing wrong with what I just told everybody. Because yes, Phil was not convicted, but he did plead guilty to something, which means that he was probably guilty of a lot more than what he pleaded to. But a plea means yes. That's what a plea means. It means yes, I'm guilty of this. And that's what he stated. So it doesn't matter if you like him. You cannot argue with what I just said. You can research all of it. It doesn't matter if you don't like him. Please be careful how you call him out on things and how you educate other people, because you cannot say certain things that did not happen. You have to state them the way that they did happen. I hope this video helps everyone. Continue to wake up people about him, explain the differences, and let people know what he was arrested for. And then you can clearly say that he went to court and pleaded down to this. But he was arrested, so that's not a lie, and he cannot sue you for saying he was arrested, because there's an arrest on file. We can look it up. We have the freedom of information. You can find all of this. Also, some people pay money to do background checks. And guess what, Phil? It's in your background. So you can't sue someone for looking up your background. Because you know what about background checks? Let me do this really quick. When you go to rent an apartment, they'll do a background check on you, okay? I worked at the casinos. They had to do a background check on me. So background checks, you don't need a court order to do it. Anybody can do a background check. If you want to hire someone to babysit your children, do you realize you can do a background check on them? You can go to a certain app on a computer, pay a certain amount of money, and you can get all the information on that person. That is not against the law. So if you've done a background check on someone and you can say, hey guys, I did a background check on Phil. This is what shows up. Well, anybody can double check it, Phil. You can't sue someone. But what I will say, Phil, is if you don't like people looking into your background and you don't like people talking about your past, then maybe you should have made better decisions. You know what I mean? And for you to continuously want to sue people and get ugly and mean because you think you're smarter, you're drawing more attention for more people to actually do a background check on you. You're drawing more attention for people to dig and look at your court case and maybe even find the arrest information. You're doing that yourself. So you're drawing more attention to yourself. And you need to be more honest, okay? Because they're only hearing your side of the situation. They have not heard the side of that young girl. So for anyone listening to this, do know that she was traumatized from this whole situation. And because she has not spoken up on Telegram, because she's not made a video, does not mean that she forgave him. It does not mean that she's forgotten about it. It just means that it hurts and she doesn't want to talk about it. Now, if anybody's been a teenage girl, you know what I mean. When you fall in love with someone and you get your feelings hurt, it hurts pretty much for the rest of your life. You never forget it. And I don't know what he said to her. I don't know what he did with her. But I can tell you this, it's not fair to only listen to his side and not her side, because you're not getting the full story. How many of you only hear one side of a story and base all your facts on that? Don't you, at least if you have 2 kids, don't you at least talk to both your kids to hear both their sides of the story before you figure out which one to punish? And if you say you don't do that, you're a liar. It's not fair to only listen to Phil's side of this story. You need to find people that know that young girl and talk to them. Or if you know that girl, you need to talk to her. Quit just listening to his side and think that's all you need, because that's wrong. You're not looking at the whole story. So stop it. Just stop it. Until you talk to that young girl, you can't just listen to his side. You have to understand the whole story. I do not know her personally, but she is in my prayers, and I hope that one day she will heal from this traumatic experience that she's suffering from. I really do. I hope she does. And I hope Phil finally gets karma kicking him in the ass, because he needs it. Please share my video here. Please spread the word. I don't care if he doesn't like me. If Phil wants me to come on his station and him and I talk peacefully, then I will do that. I will. But I'm not saying anything that is wrong. I'm not claiming anything that is not true. Everything I have stated is true in the way that it works. You know why I know that? Because I studied law. And guess what? I studied the Constitution. So I know what I'm talking about. Even though I do not practice law does not mean I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to educate as many people as I can so they know what the words mean and they know how to talk about you where it's not a lie, where they're not offending you. Because you know what? It's in your arrest records. It's online. And you can't tell people not to look you up. All right? You can't do it. And you can't scare them into not looking you up, because they have a right to look you up. You are presenting yourself as a big figure. And if people want to know if they can trust you or not, they should be looking into your past. So quit saying what you're saying to people. Because you know what? People like me, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep educating people. Everyone has the right to look him up and to dig into this past and to ask questions. You don't have to believe what he says because you can make up your own mind. So do not let him bully you or threaten you. Because if he threatens you, then turn around and sue him. All right. Y'all have a wonderful day. And please, please, please be careful how you state things. Use your words properly. And if anybody ever needs me, come find me and I'll help you out even more.